Hey, how's it going? Welcome. It's time for Functional Conditioning Yoga with me, Ricky Stewart. I'm excited about this one because we'll get back to it. This is the class that I was doing all through lockdown. I kind of love it. So this is what it's about. It's functional range conditioning around the yoga class. So functional range conditioning is smart mobility where you learn how to use your joints through their full range of motion really individually. So when I say that, it means that when we're looking at a shoulder, we're trying to make a shoulder perform only as a shoulder, not as a shoulder plus spinal rotation plus leaning. So if I do this, look, this is a shoulder cow with lots of rotation through the torso and things. That isn't it. We look at the stuff individually. And then when we do stretches, when we find new ranges, we're trying to find more control using pails and rails, which is a isometric contraction in different directions depending on the stretch. So if we look at a simple hamstring stretch, so if I put my leg up on the sofa, I hold the stretch for a bit to try and teach this stuff here to be able to get longer, and then after doing a long stretch I try and push down to be able to contract this muscle in its lengthened state, which then makes your body kind of realise that this range, this extra bit of space is something that the body might need, and it might give you a little bit more mobility, and then we catch that opportunity while you're at your most flexible to add in the map of the clothing angle, the rails, the regressive angle isometric loading. We then try and lift your foot up as strong as you can so you own your mobility, which is the most important bit. You own it. You're strong enough in this range to be able to lift this foot, and your hip flexors muscles in your belly understand how to control the lengthened state of this hamstring. Then you've got a hip joint that works really well in this direction. We do that in every direction, so that then you've got a hip, or you've got a shoulder, you've got an elbow, you've got wrists, you've got joints that you can really understand how they work, and it's exciting for me. And also, I've been saying this the last couple of days, this is kind of just the way of explaining this has popped into my head. Even though there are poses in this, just like yoga, so we'll still do things like Warrior 2, where you're like this shape. I'm not after a Warrior 2. I don't care about Warrior 2 actually. It doesn't interest me the fact that people can do a Warrior 2. This is an expression of your mobility. And it's for you to search this pose for your deficits, for the bits that you don't quite have hold of. So when we talk about Warrior 2 having this knee pulled back, you've got to see whether or not your footprint collapses. So maybe your big toe in the ball of your foot picks up to be able to pull this knee back, or maybe you have to turn your hips way too much like this, which means that this outside your hip isn't working. It's a way of me getting you to understand what you've got in your body and how to use it. And that's exciting. Okay, so let's get into it. We start in seated on the floor if the floor's good. You can even sit up on the sofa if you want. And cross your legs. Remember, if cross-legged don't work as well, if you've got a hip that doesn't like crossing your legs, or lower back that doesn't like crossing your legs, you can always just sit one leg out in front like this, or even prop yourself up with your hands. Any shape is good because we're just getting started with breathing first. So, if you bring your hands onto your knees, pick your shoulders up and drop your shoulders down. Release your tongue from the roof of your mouth. Let your mouth close gently. Unclench your jaw. And breathe using your diaphragm. And I get it that you always breathe using your diaphragm, but I want you to focus on expanding your lungs, like make your whole torso expand as you breathe in. It draws in as you breathe out. So expand as you breathe in. Draw in as you breathe out. And this breathing is important because it's breathing, and you know that already, but these muscles that we use to be able to breathe using our belly, using our diaphragm more, like focusing this air down to here and not up here, it means that your breathing apparatus, which is this stuff all around here, is already occupied with breathing. But can you do movement and breathing at the same time? And squeeze rib cage towards your hips from one side to the other, from one side to the other. Try and feel what's going on. So you'll see I'm kind of hanging out on each side bend. I'm working out what my shoulders are doing. Maybe You shrug your shoulders up because something's hard to do, or you're not quite sure what to do yet. Your body maybe has that habit. So every habit that our body has, we look for it and we ask ourselves, does that need to be a habit? Is everything going through that lens? So if you do, every time something's hard, keep this sideways movement going. If every time something is hard you do this, do you think that the tissues, the muscles, connective stuff can deal with that amount of always pulling in that direction? Well, if you did some actions with your shoulders down, would it give these muscles a little bit of rest? And then would they not clench up so bad and you'd need to go for a massage so much? I've got a hair in my eye. I'm okay. Is it gone? I don't know. All right. Then cross your arms over your chest and rotate. So rotation of our torso is one of our most important things. It can create torque. It can create power for us to be able to be locomotive. So moving forwards and running and walking, in everything, we need this little bit of rotation. It's not this big expression of rotation that I'm doing now, but if you've got anything missing from this rotation, then we might need to train it to be able to add it back into your movement. So see how I'm doing a little pause on each side? Notice how my neck doesn't turn with my torso. It's not wrong for it to do that, but it changes things because my view of the world has changed. I can trick myself into thinking I'm doing more than I actually am. Good. And then roll up onto your knees and unhook your legs. Okay. So pushing your chest away from the floor, go through cat-cow. You might have done cat-cow before, and you might be doing it really well, or you might have been missing the point a little bit. So when I push my chest up and go to cat, to come to cow pose or camel pose, it's coming down like this and looking up. If you're just kind of going, pushing up and then dropping down, you're missing out the point of what this is for. This is for spinal segmentation, to be able to teach you to be able to move each individual vertebra to do its individual job. So it should look like this. Look, it's an expression of the biggest range I've got in spinal flexion, and then I move one vertebra at a time, starting at my lumbar spine. I'm trying to feel what's happening. I'm trying to understand. I've got to close my eyes. I find it hard to talk and do this at the same time. Moving slow. I'm trying not to hold my breath, although holding breath isn't such a bad thing when we're doing concentrating and hard stuff, as long as you can get back to breathing kind of quick. And see how I'm moving from one end of my spine to the other, and there are so many options within this. So what about if I showed you how to do a side bend while we do this? Then the control gets a little bit harder. You'll notice that I find it hard to separate out my lumbar spine from my thoracic spine, but I want them to be able to perform separately or as a team. And it's all just as important. Then try going across the other side. We're training this stuff, actually training your spine to be able to be a spine so it can maintain all of its movements. Each vertebra, each segment, only has millimeters of movement. But if one of your spinal segments doesn't have its millimeters of movement, somewhere else in the spine will pick up the slack. So if you've got maybe 2 or 3 vertebrae, they're kind of locked in place, they don't move very well because you spent a long time typing on a computer and driving and looking at your phone. The thoracic junction normally, so right between where your lumbar spine ends and your thoracic spine starts, normally there gets a little bit locked up, a little bit tight. It can't move very well. But then you still ask your body to go like this, somewhere else will pick up the slack. And if somewhere else is picking up the slack, they're adding millimeters that aren't really available to them. And it means that that spinal disc gets squashed up a bit. So being able to go through that really mindfully, so you know that you're not hurting yourself. If it feels like it hurts, if it feels like you're vulnerable, you are vulnerable and you are hurting yourself. So you might need to back away a little bit. It might mean you don't hit all of these end ranges. So let's think about that as we go into this. I like this sat on my feet with my toes pointing backwards, but you don't have to do it like that. You can do it up high like this if your ankles don't work very well in this range. So if you cross your arms over, I'm going to make this strong as well. So it's not a passive movement. We're going to be strong and squeeze our fists into our shoulders and then do a crunch like this. So you're kind of curling your spine over, a little bit like cat pose. You're going to keep your face looking forwards as you rotate and then dip. And then lean back. Try and lengthen all of these muscles here. So thinking about lengthening muscles from your sternum to your belly button as you land, and then crunch as you come around. And then change direction. Dip, lean back. And I'm still squeezing my fists into my shoulders. And I'm breathing. I'm trying to feel for the corners of where my thoracic spine can perform here. Because I want in life to be able to be in any spinal shape, any at all, and be able to catch tension, catch stability. Because that's so important, that I'm stable in my spine if I want to be, but I can also be passive in my spine if I need to be. So it can move easily like this. And you can do some easy reps of this, look, that are a little bit more empty, and it'll feel really different to when you're starting to squeeze again. I like the training element of this. I like that it feels like I'm training these muscles in my belly to be able to lengthen and shorten and contract and extend, to be able to show my spine how all these shapes can go. And I think about all of my core training, everything that when I train the muscles of my belly, so all this around here, is spinal training. It's not that I'm trying to get this stronger. I'm trying to be able to either get my spine to move really specifically, or I'm trying to get these muscles to contract hard enough that my spine doesn't move, like in a deadlift or a squat. And that's how it works. So if you take a step forwards with one foot, I'm going to move sideways on so you can see. Then bring your shoulder on top of your knee, so your hands go either side of your foot. I want you to pull the floor towards your back knee with this foot. As you push your hips back, look for hamstring stretch, and then pull yourself forwards. Go to hamstring stretch, and then pull yourself forwards. What I like about this is that I'm feeling how this hamstring works. So as I go back, this stretches, and then I contract it to pull me forwards. So it's a function of this hamstring that I'm training really. I'm not going to get more flexible, even though this is a bit of a stretch. I'm not here for long enough, there's not enough persuasion to make this muscle be able to lengthen more and for me to be able to touch my toes easier. What it does do though, teach me how to bend this knee using this hamstring. Which might sound funny that you wouldn't, but I want it to be the best part of the team that it possibly can be. The last one. Yes. Then hold yourself forwards and let's get into some shoulder cars. So think about your armpits being the same distance away from the floor, and then with this, a hand that's furthest away from your foot reaches forwards. You try and get this hand up as high as you can, swing it around behind your back, reach it up behind your back. Swing it to straight, and then swing it forwards and try and keep it over the top of your ear. So training all of the rear stuff in your shoulder to be able to perform. To do well at this, we need irradiation, which means you try and tense all of the muscles that are involved in this, everything down the chain, all the way to your fist, and try and pick this arm up as high as you can. Keep this going. It should get hard now. So I'm trying to balance out life. The life of this shoulder is having your arms in front of you. Maybe we can make it a bit stronger with all of the rear muscles in the shoulder. Then swap legs. We have a little play around with this hamstring again. So you're trying to pull the floor towards this back knee. And your shape might look different to me. Maybe really flexible. Maybe you can go hips all the way back down to your heel. What I'm after though, and this isn't between right and wrong, it's just so we've got clear instructions. I'm going to keep this footprint quality, which means I've got a little gap under my instep, the ball of my foot presses down, my heel presses down, this outside edge metatarsal pushes down, hips go back, and I pull myself forwards, looking for the function of this hamstring. And keep breathing. That's it. Couple more. Keep looking for that hamstring stretch. Then hold yourself forwards. And then the hand furthest away from this front foot reaches forwards. And you try and get this hand as high as you can without turning your chest. Swing it around. Swing it up behind your back. Straighten it out. And swing it forwards. Keep this moving. Keep trying to feel the ends of this, or training this shoulder to be strong enough to be able to move into these end ranges. And the axial rotation is important, so the pencil sharpener style rotation, like axial rotation, gives this shoulder space to be able to perform. Perfect. And then take a step back and go into downward facing dog. Tuck your toes, press heels towards the floor, hips up, and try and lengthen your spine. And you can explore this lots as well, so maybe your hips can move side to side. You can push your fingertips down more, go into tiptoes and then back down, tiptoes and back down. And see if you can make this ankle, both ankles perform. So when you go tiptoes, there's all different types of tiptoes. So you can keep, after really, the ball of your foot stays connected to the floor and you bend your toes as much as you can. And keep breathing. Maybe look for this hamstring and calf stretch as you push your heels towards the floor. They don't need to touch. Then walk your feet in, walk your hands in until we're in this like forward fold. Have a little bend in these knees so there's some play, there's some movement involved here. Breathe and reach down. Maybe drop your instep down, pick your instep up. Drop your instep down, pick your instep up. Spread your toes and push your toes down. Then think about the shape of your spine. So remember I said I want you to be able to catch tension, catch stability wherever you need stability. So right now our spine's curled around and all of this stuff here is stretching along with all of this stuff here, which is fine, that's good, that's what a forward fold is, and maybe you can touch your toes or touch the floor, or maybe not quite, all of that is cool. But can you make your back flat from here? So pull the weight forwards onto your toes and lift your collarbone until you make your back flat, and you're going to tense the muscles in your belly and hip flexors to be able to drop your belly down lower. Maybe push the outside edge of your toes down, so like all down the outside edge of your foot. Keep trying to reach down, maybe reach your arms back to take your hands out of it. It's like we're trying to go proud chest and look for this hamstring stretch. Maybe move your hips side to side a little bit, swing your hands forwards and sit into chair pose. And chair pose can be anywhere. I'm not stuck on it being like a 90-degree angle or feet together or any of those are fine. So I move forwards, look. What I'm not so keen on is if your knees collapse inwards like this. I want the outside of your hip to be stable here in your chair pose. Hands can do what they like for now as well. In front's kind of good. You can reach them up if you want, if that's what you normally do. Even have them down by your side or feel around your hips and work out what's on. Can you turn hamstrings on here? Can you keep holding it? Can you lean over onto one leg and keep this hip stable and balance on one foot? Maybe even drop a little bit on one leg. Bring it back over to the other side. Balance. And you keep this footprint, knee, hip stable so it doesn't collapse like this. You can do a little dip and back up, dip and back up. Bring it back into chair pose and just explore this a bit. Can you make this stable? Are you kind of pulling on your lower back? Can you go prouder chest? None of it's between right and wrong. It's all just exploration of this pose to see whether you can do it. And then drive hips through, reach your arms up, reach your arms down. Okay, let's very quickly go through some hip cars, so some hip controlled articular rotations, see what the function of this hip is. If you need to balance, balancing is good and practicing balance is fun and good, but if you really struggle with it, just cheat. You can hold onto a bit of furniture or something. Pick this knee up You pull your heel as close to your bum as you can, so you've got this hamstring closed up. Then grab hold of your shin and show yourself that hamstring is closed. See if you can keep it like that as you drag this knee back. And then open this knee out to the side. Pick this knee up, bring it across. Knee back, knee out, knee up, knee across. It's the biggest circle you can draw with this knee without sharing it out into the other hip. And that looks like this. If you share it out into the other hip, you see how I've got this knee up high here. By sharing it, that isn't it. As much as that kind of feels nice, I want to see if you can make real stability in this standing legs hip. You can find all the edges here. You might see my face do a little gurn because I'm trying really hard to keep all the structures together. I'm trying really hard to keep my hamstring closed, and that's the bit that's kind of tiring out for me today. It's all just training to show this hip how to be a hip minus lower back. Because they make a good team, do the hip and the lower back. They are a good team. They do good stuff together. If this hip is missing some movements, we're going to try the other leg, then the lower back will pick up the slack. If that lower back overworks, you get an achy lower back. We're going to work out how to tense these muscles around here to be able to contract everything here to make a stable lower back and show this hip how to be a hip. So it goes back, knee out, knee up, knee across. And I'll change little bits of this every time I teach it because there's so much going on. You can't focus on it all at the same time. Sometimes I'll focus on the axial rotation, so your femur doing this rotation. Sometimes I'll let you just do the biggest circle you can with your knee and just see what happens. Remember, it's not between right and wrong. You build on this and you build on learning and trying to do it. And trying your best to keep everything stable, trying your best to keep balance good. That's it. And then come down into 90-90. So 90-90 with your left leg forward like this. It's called 90-90 because it's two 90-degree angles, like 90-degree angles here, 90-degree angles here, and maybe even 90-degree angles here as well. So hinge forwards over the top of this shin. So your sternum drops right in front of your shin. Maybe even bring your belly across towards your front foot. We're looking to feel this stretch here on the outside of our hip. And just breathe. Just do this passive stretch. When it's passive, it means that the floor is in the way and the weight of your body and gravity are helping you to find this stretch. You're not putting any more input into it than that. You're kind of putting yourself into a shape and then letting that shape stretch you. We hang out here for a fair while to see if we can persuade the body that this is something that we could use. If we don't hold it for long enough, if we just kind of fleetingly drop and then come back out of it, that isn't it. That being said though, I invite exploration, because remember there's not just one way to do this. Maybe, if this is kind of new, you might have dropped your belly over your thigh and you might not get that stretch anywhere near as much as if your torso is across towards this front foot. Maybe your hands don't like holding you up. Maybe you could go elbow in front of your knee, elbow in front of your foot. If you're a little bit more flexible, that might find it a bit more. Maybe wide hands works better, maybe close hands, maybe having this hand behind you to push yourself across. There's got to be a shape that works for you, and we'll keep working it out. So give you more options and you decide which one works the best for you. Okay. Then we're going to do some work. So push this shin down. I need you to push this shin through the floor. The back ankle needs to help to create stability in this hip. This back ankle pushes down, and you just keep driving this foot down and maybe find more range. So this is our PAILs, our progressive angle isometric loading. So we're isometrically loading up. The progressive angle, the stretching angle loads up. I'm dropping my belly, pushing my shin, my ankle down. Keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing, keep driving. Keep breathing, going 3, push harder, 2, push harder, finish really strong, 1, and sit up. Hands either side of your thigh, pick this foot up. Maybe even slide your hand under your ankle, pick this foot up. Push that back ankle down. When you let go of this foot, try not to let it drop, and see if you can tense your belly and teach this hip flexor that is strong enough to stretch the way we've just been stretching. Keep holding it up. You can keep bringing this hand back in to show yourself that you've got it. And drop and stretch one more time. That's cool. Then when we swing over to the other leg, we're not going straight into the stretch on the other leg. I want to see if you can articulate this and understand what we've just stretched. So sit up as tall as you can. You're going to try and lift up this leg from this hip to pick up the shin, then point this knee up and point this foot forwards and try and externally rotate this knee, then pick it up, drag it back, drag this foot back. This should be kind of hard. We're trying to get a bit of circulation into exactly the place that just did a load of work. See if you can create a stable torso by maybe putting a bit of tension into here, tensing the muscles in your belly. Got one more. Yes. And then come into this stretch for this other leg. So hinge forwards, breathe here, dropping your belly down. And it's really normal, really normal to be different from side to side. So one side different to the other is absolutely normal. See if you can relax your jaw. Push your belly out to breathe in. Draw your belly in to breathe out. Just keep hinging. I'm just exploring this end range, trying to find it, trying to understand it. That's it. Okay. Then if we start doing a bit of work, drive this shin down and keep loading up this ankle, this shin, this knee. So pushing down hard and trying to find this end range. Keep pushing down hard and finding end range. Relax your jaw. Keep pushing. That back ankle has to help as well. Keep loading up. We're going 3, 2, 1. Sit up. Hands either side of your thigh, and then lift this foot up. Maybe give yourself a bit of help, so your hand under your ankle can hold, show you your passive range. So this is passive, this is active. I'm trying to bridge the gap between my passive and active range by showing these muscles, the closing angle, that they're strong enough, strong enough, strong enough. Going 3, 2, 1, drop, and then hinge again. And I nearly always feel like I've got a lot more range every time I do this. I do it a lot, I'm getting better and better. All the time I feel like the connection to my hips and the way that they perform keeps improving. Perfect. Then if we spin round, onto the other leg, nearly forgot then what to do. Spin around onto your leg, chest up, pick up this leg from the hip here. So showing these muscles here, so you drag this knee up around the rear of this hip, then point forwards. Then try and refine the back of this, so this whole shin is pushing back, and drag it back, pick it up, point forwards. If your knees always feel a bit funky, like they get a bit jammed up, and quite often improving your hip function with exercises like this, and like the standing hip calf, can quite often give your knees a bit of space to be able to move better, because your hips can then pick up more of the slack and become a better team member to the team that moves you around. Last one. Perfect. And then rolling down onto your back. Hug your knees into your chest. I want you to push your heels together quite hard and have like about a fist's distance between your knees. Grab hold of your hamstrings and try and straighten legs up and back down. Straighten legs up and back down. Keep hold of both of these hamstrings. As you straighten your legs, see if you can find a little hamstring stretch. Keep breathing, keep pushing heels together, and then hold in this hamstring stretch. And it's going to be a bit shaky, Your hands just keep helping you find your hamstring stretch. Heels keep touching, knees just a little bit apart. And then we show muscles in our belly and our hip flexors that you've got this by pushing your hands against your knees and your knees against your hands. And load it up. Keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing. In 3, 2, 1. Drop your heels down, hug your knees into your chest, and just rock side to side. Then roll up into seated, back to cross-legged. And just have a little fidget. Maybe move your neck side to side, ear to shoulder, ear to shoulder. Move slowly. If you feel vulnerable in the neck, then you are vulnerable and you shouldn't push into corners that feel painful. Do a little bit of rotation. Rotate, try the other side, a little bit of rotation. And bring palms together. Thumbs to forehead, tuck your chin and roll forwards. Namaste. Thank you so much everyone for hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed that. And I'll be back on 3D Leisure at Home every week at this time, doing all the mobility stuff, all the smart mobility stuff, and I really hope you can join me. It's such a great product and so proud to be part of it. It's really cool. So I will hopefully see you all very soon, and maybe even in real life. I'm teaching this class tonight at Fashionable Fitness in Scarborough. I'll maybe see you there. Alright, thanks everyone, I appreciate you all. See you soon. Bye.